I'm Sinner, and today we're talking about punters politics. Punters, Australia. Yeah. Oh, it's so bloody corrupt. Oh, mate, it's corrupt. It's bloody corrupt, is what it is. All these politicians seem to serve the interests of the people who pay them, and that's bloody corruption. That is. Punters politics is an interesting little YouTube channel that I watch fairly occasionally, and it's a very good channel, all things considered. It's him most of the time just reporting or talking about commentating on journalism, and it's a very specific type of journalism. It's journalism covering things like politicians taking bribes or people getting paid by oil companies or gas companies or mining companies. Or hey, look, this big oil leak happened, this big gas leak happened, and the government bailed them out instead of fining them, which they should have done. Or oh, look, here's this gas leak, and would you look at that? The guy who was meant to be regulating this company also happened to be a lobbyist for the company, and that's a conflict of interest on a technicality. But as a punter, as a bloody punter, we can know that that's corruption when we see it. That is corruption, mate. That's bloody corruption. And it's this whole thing. It's all about, hey, look, all these big companies don't pay tax. All these politicians are getting paid a lot of money by lobbyists and corporate interests and all this sort of thing. And frankly, it strikes me as very strange that what he says is like, oh, we need more transparency. We need more, um, we need more, like, we need to expose these people, and we need these big companies to be taxed instead of us being taxed. And it's like, yeah, cool. That's a good solution, I guess. But the problem is with this type of thinking is it doesn't actually do anything. See, every time there's legal corruption in the form of lobbying or whatever, or campaign funding, or getting a job from a company after you pass laws that help the company, and the whole revolving door where people go from private to public to private, and it always so happens to benefit the private corporations, the rich, these big companies, rather than the people. He sort of sees it as like this issue of like, oh well, if we just start regulating them, if we start, if we put a single if we put a single lobbyist in Canberra, that's going to fix everything. And this is just not going to work. I'm sorry. Like, there's all of his like positive arguments. His descriptive stuff is great. I think it's good. But all of his positive prescriptions on how things ought to be fall short. They don't do anything. Because the thing is, if you're a politician, right? If you're a politician, the way that you get into power is by getting funded. There's literally zero chance of the average bloke ever ever running a political campaign, when there's a positive correlation, by the way, between the amount of campaign funding you get and the likelihood that you're going to win. There's no chance that you're going to be able to, as an average bloke, run a political campaign that's going to outbeat the Labour or Liberal or National candidate in your particular area. There's no way that you're going to do that unless you get funding, right? And if you're an average bloke, which most people are, and same with most politicians, they don't have money laying around. They don't have millions or billions of dollars laying around. They have to get the money. So where do they get the money to run these campaigns? From donors. And what do those donors do? They're not going to give away money for no reason. You have to appeal to them. You have to give them something in exchange for them giving you money. It's not like this naive attitude. It's like, oh yeah, well, I like this guy, so I'm just going to give him some money. It's like, no. It's either the reason I like him is because he's going to protect my interests, and that's why I'm giving him money, or it's I'm going to give you money so you can protect my interests. And then they get into power, right? And once they're in power, what do? Well, you have, non-government organizations which are conspicuously funded, or you have lobby groups and all of these such things advising the government on how they should enact their particular policies. And then you see like solutions for a lot of policy problems trickle down to be not really solutions. Like, for example, I remember reading about the housing crisis and the Western Australian government's NGO that they consulted on the housing crisis. All they said was just, have you tried building more houses? Have you tried building more houses? Nothing about like slowing down mass immigration, nothing about taxing people for, rental properties or like holding on to properties vacant for long periods of time, nothing like that, which is, obviously it's a multifaceted problem, but they boil it down to like the one thing that would benefit the rich, which is just build more houses and keep the housing crisis going for as long as possible. And then the politicians, it's the same thing. They get into power, and all the laws and all the policies that they're getting suggested on, they're getting suggestions from lobby groups, NGOs. So, and they don't know what they're on about. They're just lawyers. They're just lawyers from university who got a job as a politician. They don't actually know how to run anything. So, of course, they're going to outsource it. And then, obviously, they're going to want a job after they're done in politics. So, what do? Well, they do some more favors here and there, so that way when they leave, they can actually have a livelihood for the other 30, 40 years of their working life, or however long it is, I don't really care. But the point is they're not going to, it's every step of the way, it's in the interest of the politician to either take money from people who will scratch his back, he would scratch their back, to take advice from these people because he doesn't know how to do it himself, and then once he leaves, to secure himself a job after he spends his time in politics. It makes perfect sense why they do it every time. So this idea that it's like, oh, well, if we just like, tax the companies, or, oh, if we, I don't know, if we just are more transparent, all of a sudden all these problems will go away. No, they won't go away because it's about incentive structures, and the politicians are incentivized to take money. It's that simple. And so it's a feature of democracy is what it is. And you can't look at it as anything else, realistically. Every single democracy has been plutocratic. Every single one, whether it's, the third estate taking control of it in the French Revolution, if it's the British Parliament taking control after the English Civil War, if it's the American Revolution, all of them plutocratic. So, this idea of like, oh, we can have democracy without the corruption is kind of like saying like, oh, we can have socialism without it degenerating into an authoritarian regime. It just never works. It never works that way. So, yeah, I think punter politics, interesting guy, good journalism, really bad positive prescriptions. The actual positive prescription would be to have a different, if this is your problem, it would be to have a different regime. It would be to have a different structure of government, one that doesn't involve politicians having to acquire money and get money in order to rise the ranks. It would require a system probably where they're already rich. Sorry, that's just how the world works. I'm sorry. They would have to already be rich, and then they wouldn't be incentivized to take money. And that's been tried, and it has worked historically. So there's that, but people don't like that. People like democracy and the idea of, the everyman getting a crack at taking bribes. So yeah. But that's all I have to say. I am Sinner. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.